Hello and happy Mother's Day to those of you who are mothers. And hello to everybody viewing this, period. I had a special surprise Mother's Day letter today come to me that I wanted to share. And it was opened, but somebody, the house that I lived in just up the street from me where I'm sitting now, I lived in that house from 2003 to 2007. And I know the people that live there now. I've known them for a long time. And that person got hold of me today and said they found a letter from my mother to me. They said it was unopened when they got it, that it was still sealed. And they believe that it didn't reach. They said they believed it was never opened. And they opened it because when I left that house, another guy named Tim lived there for a few years and he was gone. So they thought it might have been his. And they opened it because it only says Tim on the front of it. And they realized that it was from my mother to me, dated 2007, a letter. And today's Mother's Day, currently, and they thought it was a divine message from my mom to me. And I'm not going to argue with that. So it was opened by them, but they said it was completely sealed. So I'm going to read it. A letter from my mother to me that was found on Mother's Day today. And I went down there and picked it up a few hours ago and said I'll probably make a video about this. Now it's written in my mother's cursive writing, which I always had a hard time reading. I print, she wrote cursive, and I will put images of this card and the writing at the end of the video if anybody should care. Part of the reason I put these videos up is for posterity's sake, so that I have this stuff, or my children or grandchildren have this stuff. I've got another letter to read by one of my ancestors. It would have been my mother's great-grandfather, who served in the Civil War and was an ordained minister after the Civil War. And he served for the Confederacy. And I've got a letter that he wrote that I found. But that's another matter. I'm going to read my mother's letter to me on Mother's Day today. All right, I'll get to it and see if I can struggle through her handwriting. Tim, Dad and I were very proud to be your parents. I remember how much we would laugh when we would play with you as a little squiggly baby. I was a bit of a butterballs baby. Then I got thin. You would laugh, squeal, and kick. In kindergarten, you wanted justice for all the other kids. I recall a school party. You were in the principal's office and wouldn't come to the party because you felt the teacher hadn't been fair to another child. And I remember that. And it was a girl. I thought that it was wrong that she got in trouble. And so they sent her to the principal's office, and in kindergarten, I marched right down there and sat down right next to her and said I wasn't leaving till she had justice. I remember that. And my mom reminded me of this a lot. She got a big, I think she was impressed. I recall at the Catholic school in Newark, you went from near bottom of class after Sodus Public School to the top. The discipline of Christ in the school made a difference, and you responded. Unfortunately, Dad thought it was too much driving, and you all came back to Sodus Public School. I was proud of your going into the military. Tim, you were a good leader. In the Guard, your men trained by you always did well, and they did, I will say. I'm sorry you couldn't have gone to the Russian linguistics classes. It's funny she remembered that, because I took a test called a D-Lab test in the Army, Defense Language Aptitude Battery, and I scored really high in it, and they said I had a high aptitude for learning languages, so they wanted to send me to Monterey, California to learn Russian, where I would be basically a spy. But that didn't happen. I was all set to go, but some things happened in my life that thwarted that whole plan. It wasn't from anything disrespectful or any failure on my part, just life happens. I wound up getting out of the Army instead, but I'd go back in. All right. Thank you for all you stand for, Tim. You're an individual, always were. May this be a year your plans materialize and your business dreams, and your business, I don't know what the word is, and your dreams or business become a success. I love you and am proud to be your mother. Love, Mom. 2007. And I'm proud to be her son, and I always let her know that on Mother's Day with a card or something she liked, you know. I used to get her scratch off tickets and pizza, or I'd take her out for ice cream or for a drive, you know, or something. I miss my mom. Her coming to me like she did, which I don't believe was a dream. I told a story about that. And that gave me great peace and closure. And I read somewhere that almost 65% of people say that that happens after a loved one passes on, that they are visited in some way to let them know that they're all right. And I think that happened with Jen too. That's another story. But she loved her mother so much that 2 days after her mother's funeral, she died. And the pieces are starting to come in. It appears that she actually did die of a broken heart, that her health broke down real fast. And she was not very old. So a mother's love can be an extremely strong one. And I was very fortunate to have a wonderful, top-notch, best mom in the world. Even though her and I argued a lot, we always didn't see eye to eye on some things, but there was never any doubt that we loved each other incredibly a lot. A lot. And I still do, and always shall. Love my mom. And I accept that she's gone. She died it was her time, you know. So it's unnatural. But these holidays, these Mother's Days, Father's Day, people's birthdays, Christmas Eves, for me, are really tough when I think of old lang syne, you know, old friends and family, let they be forgotten. It's hard sometimes, you know what I mean. Mother's Day is tough for me, and I was having a kind of a rough day today, just for different things. And you know, this was a godsend. This person found this today on Mother's Day. And Felicia, thank you very much. She was a good friend of mine, and she always has been. Known her for quite a while. I appreciate she reached right out to me when she found this today, and she thought it was divine. She said it was divine. Message from my mother to me. And she assured me that it was not opened, that she opened it thinking it was somebody else's, and then saw. She knew my mother. She liked my mother quite a bit too. So that's it. I was fortunate to have a very good childhood, and I had two great parents. My dad was very reserved and quiet in my life, and he worked. He provided, and he was sober. Rarely would you see him angry, but if you did, it was yeah. But he was very good father. My mother was very much involved in my life, central, always. And I have reason to believe that she's still around in some way watching out over me. You know, I've been back from France for 5 days now. 5 days. And I met all this. It was mostly French people that were. There weren't very many Americans there or anybody. The place I went to was kind of off the beaten path of tourism, and that I really liked it. But I did meet an older German man. He was 77, and he said he came to that little city, Dinan, population 11,000. He said he came there every year in recent years. He said because it reminded him of the town he came from in Germany before they had all these immigration problems and mosque and things went up. He really liked Dinan quite a bit. Dinan, Dinan, France. But he told me that his wife died relatively at a young age in her 40s, and left him the single parent of his children. But he told his children, and he believed this, that even though she died as a spirit, he thought that she was in an even better position to help them out and look out for them than she was in some ways when she was physically with them. So I concur with that. I definitely believe my mom's keeping an eye out for me, in God's company. So I still miss her. I miss having somebody to talk to. I could always talk to her. We have argued, but we never stayed angry. We got over things like instantly. It's just butted heads on some things, but we never stayed angry at each other. There's no doubt between us how much we loved each other. There's no doubt about it. It was just known. So that's it. I'm going to put a copy of this at the end of this video. If anybody for any reason wants to see it, part of the reason I make these videos and post these pictures is kind of like my online scrapbook. Just so if anybody, my children or my grandchildren and myself, for that matter, can look at these things.